Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to North Shore Live, Cooper's Corner. We're live this evening. This is October the 8th, 2014. The year has gone unbelievably quick, and we want to bring to your attention that voting is November the 4th. Don't vote with your heart, vote with your head. Remember, whoever you put into office is because you voted them in. And I need to tell you that there are those that play a very sly game, but you have to check their resources, find out who they are, find out what they participate in, and that will bring information to you. It may be the fact that you want to vote for one person and you think that person is what you want, but if you do some research, you will find that that doesn't necessarily mean that that person is the best choice. And considering we only are allowed one vote, please make your vote count. Do some research on these people. Very important. The race for governor, the race for all these state representatives. Find out who these people are, what's behind them, how they made their money. They're very wealthy, and it will be a rude awakening for you to find out. Okay, this evening we have and are honored to have with us Ken Ditkowsky, who's an attorney in Chicago for more than 50 years, and he's going to talk about some very important subjects, which is, a part of all of us. It's growing older, senior citizens, the disabilities, and how we are treated in a court of law. Remember what I'm saying, a court of law that's supposed to adhere to the Constitution and to the Bill of Rights, what your rights are, how we are treated here in Illinois. And so without any further ado, and I have a lot of paperwork here, we're going to go through a lot of paperwork. So let me present to you Ken Ditkowsky, and we're going to get started with the program.
Well, thank you. I brought along a couple documents. One is courtesy of Tim Larman, who is my favorite gadfly. The first document that I've referred to is the Cook County Guardianship Abuse Victims Manual, and this seems to be put out by Loyola University Community Law Center. And it deals with this guardianship situation in Illinois and basically across the country. I've been referring to the guardianship situation as elder cleansing. It's a form of discrimination, very much like racial cleansing, ethnic cleansing, and this has become a real serious problem. First of all, everyone gets old, and second of all, it's serious because I'm getting old, and I could wind up in one of these nursing homes. The major problem is you lose control. What people don't understand is a guardianship is a loss of liberty. Somebody else takes, and that person has control over you. And our Illinois statute, in particular 755 ILCS 5/11A-3B, says that the guardianship should only be to facilitate the person's lack of abilities. In other words, Illinois statute contemplates that there'll be a hearing, there'll be a determination, find out what disability I have, and then provide me with a means, a reasonable accommodation for that. And it's very consistent with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And the problem that I see is nobody reads the statute. Judge Connors, when we took her evidence deposition, pointed out words and phrases that indicate she had never read the act. She didn't know what the jurisdictional aspect is. But she reconciled it and said that if someone had pointed out the fact that she didn't have jurisdiction in the Mary Sice case, she would have immediately vacated all her orders and held a proper hearing, but they would come out with the same result. And that's the attitude that exists across the country. It exists in Florida. We have Barbara Stone's case in Florida where she found her mother was being mistreated. So she went and took her mother out, and they charged her with a crime of interfering with the custodial relationship. The guardian is not a relative. The guardian couldn't care less. The guardian is being paid and doesn't care if Barbara's mother lives or dies, is comfortable or not. It's all his concern is, do I get paid? And I'll give you an illustration of how bad this is. A while back, I had a case involving a man by the name of Robert Jaycox. He was an engineer, a very, very articulate individual, and he had a problem with pains in his extremities. I think the pains in the extremities were a reaction to medication he had. In any case, he was involved in some business transactions, and this real estate crook in DuPage County who went to jail took him for most of his money. He and his paramour invested very heavily in it, and they lost all their money. And he's in this nursing home, and nursing home is worried about getting paid. Well, they have several options if you can't pay them. They can throw you out as one of them. They can sue you and get a judgment against you. But they have an option that wasn't contemplated by the statute, and that's the option to get a guardian appointed. So they went in to try and get a guardian appointed, and I got the job of preventing it because Mr. Jaycox didn't want a guardian.
You're his attorney.
I became his attorney.
Okay.
I had asked the court for permission, and the court gave me permission. And when a hearing was supposed to be scheduled, of course, Mr. Jaycox had problems. He fell out of bed. Fell out of bed several times. Second or third time he fell out of bed, he broke his hip. So a hearing was scheduled, and we come to the nursing home, and Jaycox is gone. Where is he? He's in the hospital. He had his hip operation.
Who gave permission for that? How?
Well, you'll hear about that in a minute. He had his hip taken care of. So we moved the hearing from the nursing home to Swedish Covenant Hospital. And they took Jaycox they took him out of the recovery room and brought him in the hearing room. And the pain was absolutely excruciating. But we had the doctor there, so it was agreed, and I agreed, that we could have the doctor's testimony. Well, the doctor's testimony went very, very nicely because the judge did the examination. When the judge finished the examination, she turned to me and said, "Would you like to cross-examine?" And I said, "I certainly would." And I asked the doctor, "Doctor, when someone has an operation, someone have to consent to it?" He says, "Yes." I said, "Who consented to it?" "Jaycox." This doctor was testified under oath that Jaycox was dead from the neck up. Yet this same doctor went to him to sign the consent.
If he doesn't know, if he's unaware or not conscious enough, how could he sign?
Because nobody cares. That's the problem. Nobody cares. No one does anything about it. Nobody reads the statute. The statute says, which is consistent with ADA, that you have to make a reasonable accommodation for a person. It's not a reasonable accommodation to appoint a guardian who's unnecessary. It's not a reasonable accommodation to bring costs of 2 guardian ad litem. It's not a reasonable accommodation to abuse an individual by isolating him from his family and his loved ones. That's what's going on. So what happens is they've created a body of law that's about as legal and about as humane and about as proper as the body of law the National Socialists had in Nazi Germany.
It's Nazis, okay. National Socialists. Yeah.
It's on a level with ISIS, except the only difference is that they're killing off some old people, whereas ISIS picks people who just don't happen to be Muslim. But getting back over here, when that occurred, of course, the hearing ended because there was no way in the world the doctor could be consistent in asking Mr. Jaycox to sign a consent and have him from neck up. So the nursing home then took another tact. Apparently falling out of bed wasn't as effective as it could be. And Jaycox had an aspirated pneumonia, which is fatal. That means some product like foodstuffs got into the lungs. And of course, he died from it. And of course, like most of these situations, you get very close to an immediate cremation. And no harm, no foul. He's an old man anyway, so what?
He had no family? There was no relatives?
Oh, the family was in Canada, far away.
They're entitled to a phone call. Come down.
Well, they got a phone call.
But come down, or you know.
They weren't that interested either. Now they didn't have any money. And the problem is there are a lot of people like that. Your favorite guardian ad litem had a situation in Florida where she became the heir of some man who had a similar name. And you recall that the Attorney General of Florida came in and said, I don't see any relationship. Well, that's settled for 50 cents on the dollar. She still got it. And that's part of it. And that's where these things lie. If they get their hands on you, you're helpless. The statute says, very specific, the guardian is supposed to help me do for what I can't do myself. That's the idea of a reasonable accommodation. So you have federal law and you've got state law. Nobody gives a damn.
Well, these people that we entrust our lives to, attorneys, lawyers, judges, are they not supposed to be aware of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights? What is it in their courtroom that goes so awry that nobody holds them accountable?
This is what I was talking about, corruption. You have people who are judges who either don't know the law, have never read the law, or couldn't care less.
But if they're in that court, don't you think it would be behooving to them to read the statute, the law, because that's what they're performing?
That's expected. We've got some wonderful judges, and we've got some judges that are a total disgrace. And the ones that are a total disgrace are the ones we're talking about.
You'd better believe it.
And we've gone so far as to have a situation where it's a Holocaust. You see so many people every day. I get 4 or 5 emails from people across the country telling me about situations in which a parent or some close friend has been railroaded into a guardianship. The guardian is not even a relative, and the first thing the guardian does is go into court and says that the family agitates the disabled person, and we need an injunction keeping the family away.
Explain to me, why do they do that?
Because if the family is there, the family's not going to tolerate these things.
Of course not.
So you have to get rid of people. And the best one is the is with what they did with Gloria Sykes. Gloria Sykes had a homeowner's claim on a piece of property that she purchased. She put her mother on as a joint tenant, but never put her mother on the policy. She had a mold problem. Kemper Insurance sued her, Lumberman's part of Kemper, sued her to declare that they didn't have any liability. They lost and had to pay money. The two guardians appointed in the Sykes case came in. Actually, it was one of them. It was Cynthia Ferrango, came in on basically an oral motion to enjoin her from finishing up the work on her building. They wanted the money, and they ultimately got the money. Judge Stewart entered an order against her against her, barring her from taking money out of an Indiana court, on an Indiana Savings and Loan Association,
But
cross state lines.
Yeah, that's not her jurisdiction.
Of course not, but doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the slightest. Whatever is necessary to get this money, to get the assets, it means they will get it. There are elements to this elder cleansing discrimination. One, railroading an individual into a guardianship. Two, separating from the family. Three, garnering all their money. And four, preventing them from doing anything that they want to do. A total guardianship. And so many of our total guardianship, very, very few people.
And the finality is death. They die.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're of no value anymore. They don't need them.
Well, there are ways.
They've already taken their money, their life, their whatever, and they're useless to society.
In the Jay Cox case,
Jay
he
Cox.
shows how it's done. Very simple. Leave the bar down, put them under heavy sedation,
Let them roll.
and they roll out of bed. Break a hip, hit their head. Terrible accidents.
This nursing home, and that's what I was speaking regarding the beginning of the program about people who own nursing homes. Be aware, know what you're doing, watch your vote, find out who owns what.
Not all of them. Not all the nursing homes are. The Council for Jewish Elderly runs some very nice places. The Presbyterian Homes is very nice. But there are a bunch of them. It's a cadre of operators. Who are operators.
Yeah.
And you're talking about votes. Those nursing homes have already voted, and they voted for the dominant political party.
Because they go in there and they've got how many people? 300 people? 3,000 people?
350
in the
so
buildings,
those votes,
and they all vote the same way.
well, they don't even bother to vote. They're taken in there and they're run through
the
it.
mill, run through the
And you'll find that almost 100% of the people in those nursing homes
Vote one way.
Will vote one
way. Yeah.
I can guarantee you that just about every nursing home on the north side of Chicago has made its votes already, and I'm sure that the votes went for Governor Quinn.
So it really is whoever the alderman is that stimulates.
No, it's not the alderman. It's not necessarily the alderman. It's a nursing home operator. It's one of the paybacks. This is a massive fraud. Omnicare paid $157 million, like you'd pay a parking ticket. This guy Gilman, who has those hospice, indicted for.
Yeah.
They were talking billions of dollars. The amounts, somebody estimated that every single resident of the state of Illinois pays a tax for fraud of $3,008.
But nobody's doing anything about it.
No one's doing it about it. No one's going to do
You're
anything
being
about
taxed for the fraud that people are committing, but no one's stepping in to stop the fraud that's being committed.
There's so much money here. it's estimated it costs $1,500 for the average patient in a nursing home for them to take care of. So the bill runs $8,500. That's a nice piece of change.
More, in some cases.
In some cases, I've heard about $30,000 a month. So the amounts of money that's here is incredible.
Astronomical for a nursing home.
For a nursing home. But they can
They
adjust
could
they can adjust the costs.
They could live in the Palmer House and have a steak for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Would not cost as much as it does in the nursing
Well,
home.
I've advised people, kind of joking on the level, rather than go to a nursing home, why don't you go on a round-the-world cruise?
Absolutely.
You get you get better care, and
And they treat you nice.
And they treat you nice.
And they don't murder you.
That's true. Well, if you get really nasty, they drop you off the side. And Carnival Cruises have had some interesting problems.
Yeah, as of late, yes.
But by and large, what we're dealing with here is a tremendous amount of money that's shared, and how it's distributed. I've mentioned that before. I don't want to proceed on that, but the ADA is kind of an interesting concept, and I sat down with Tim Larman. He educated me on it, and particular Title II. And then he sent me a document called Statement of Interest of the United States of America, and it's in the case of Stephen Frankel versus Prakel versus State of Indiana, and it's case number 4:12-CV45 SEB-WGH. And it's illustrated of what ADA is supposed to be, and it's on the far extreme.
Okay.
Most of your ADA cases are employment cases, and they're cases in which somebody has a disability and he turns to the employer and says, I hurt my back, I can't walk, can I have light duty? And ADA requires that they get light duty. And it runs the gambit, and some people look at it and say, this is going a little far. If you can't do your job, why should the employer have to do this? But this is the policy of
Americans with Disability Act.
It's the act,
Okay,
but it's also
ADA.
the policy of our country of not benign neglect, but a proactive approach to get the best out of everybody. And you give a little, and you get a little. And the Prakel case is not an employment case. It's a case involving a situation where his mother had a criminal trial, and Frankel was deaf. So he went to the court, and he says, I like a reasonable accommodation under ADA.
He needs sign language.
Yeah, sign language.
Because-
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be sign language. We have the automatic stenographic situation where you speak in and the words come out.
Okay.
And there are various hearing aids. There are various ways of dealing with it. And he asked for it. And the judge says to him, are you a party? No. Are you a witness? No. Well, we're just not going to give any member of the public any accommodation.
It was his mother.
Well, they went broader than that. The government came out in a 25-page document and said, I'm going to read you this thing. The obligation of public entities to provide necessary auxiliary aids and services is not limited to individuals with a direct interest in the proceedings or outcome. Courtroom spectators with disabilities are also participants in the court program and are entitled to such aids or services as will afford them an equal opportunity to follow court proceedings. In other words, the court proceeding is intended not to be a private affair.
It's public.
It's part of the public.
Absolutely.
And the judges, the attorneys, and the participants are on display.
Okay.
And the government's position is that you have to make a reasonable accommodation for every person with a disability to the extent necessary. Now, reasonable is the key word here. You don't have to have an individual signer.
Yeah, sign language.
You can have one with general. So the idea here is reasonable accommodation.
Did he ever receive anything?
Well, it went all the way to the Indiana Supreme Court, and one of the judges in the Indiana Supreme Court resigned over this. They forced him. He said, no, we don't have to do it. And the government said yes. And the scuttlebutt is they threatened him with criminal prosecution. And he resigned rather than face it. And there are other cases like this with the reasonable accommodation that has to be made. Now, when you apply this to the guardianship cases, you'll read the statute, and the statute says that all they want to do is provide the means with which a disabled person can enjoy the fruits of American citizenship. Simple as that. And it's totally ignored when they go beyond it. When you take and separate me from my family, that's not a reasonable accommodation. When you separate me from my life savings, that's not a reasonable accommodation. When you place me in a nursing home so you can earn a referral fee, that's not a reasonable accommodation.
And collect, financial remuneration.
Well,
that is.
I'm kind of jumping around here, but nursing homes contract out most of the services, and they contract to controlled corporations. It's the Enron scandal all over again. Everybody knows it occurs. We know that the healthcare fraud runs about 75% of the total cost. So when you look at it, it's a bad situation. But the focus has to be on the enforcement. And the reason the focus has to be on the enforcement is because of the fact that the miscreants who are engaged in this thing have taken and they've captured the attorney discipline commissions who do nothing but aid and abet, in particular here in Illinois. You know, when you wrote and told the ARDC what had happened to your mother and the way you were treated by certain people, it was appalling. And not only appalling, it's about as ethically challenged as you can get. And then you get back that they're not interested, they find nothing wrong.
It's really mind-boggling because you assume, which you should not ever do, is assume anything, but common sense leads you in the direction of if someone's being maltreated, you need to correct the situation. These are people who get paid for their expertise in law, and they're saying they find there's nothing wrong.
They're not interested, or they're aiding and abetting. And you look over here and you look at this Cook County Guardianship Abuse Victims Manual. It's kind of interesting. On the first page, it says, "Please take the time to learn more about your case. Go downtown and view and copy your file. Please report suspected financial exploitation to proper authorities. We urge you to report criminal activities of the FBI, that's 18 U.S.C. 4, and asked to be in touch with the Public Corruption Unit. Please ask your investigator to join your file with other files containing complaints on the same unethical people as are in your case. Well, you've done it. Hundreds of other people have done it. They've written the ARDC, and they got nothing. The only thing they got was I complained, and I got a 4-year suspension for complaining. I wrote a letter to the Attorney General of the United States. That's what the ARDC is interested in. It's a code of silence that they're trying to impose. Joanne is running a blog, and they're trying desperately to shut her up. Now, that also comes under ADA. We have the right to a retaliation suit and the 1983 suit. We filed the 1983 suit and got thrown out in our ear. We're in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. Probably get thrown out of there too, because nobody cares. Who cares about an old fart?
You know, that's not even the case. It's the money grubbing that bothers me the worst.
It's
because if judges leave not only their bench, but they leave the state of Illinois to be harbored by another state for for protection, that's very distressing to me. That's
when I gave a talk for the
North Shore,
something or other.
Senior citizens, yeah.
Yeah, and after I gave the talk, I got on the internet to see what was going on, and I think it's Tim who put me onto this manual also, and found out that on March 25th, 2014, an act called House Bill 5573 was submitted to the Illinois legislature by Representative David Harris, the 53rd District. And this bill seeks to protect the validity of previously and properly and legally executed power of attorneys and advance directives, stating in a clear and concise language that these documents shall stand only to be overturned if undue influence in the creation of the document is proven at a due process hearing conducted for that purpose. In other words, one of the people asked me about the power of attorney. And
at the meeting?
At the meeting.
Okay.
And I told him, quite frankly, that the powers of attorneys are just ignored.
It's true.
Which they are.
It's true.
And I knew that from experience and having watched.
Once you're in that court, they do whatever they want to do.
That's exactly right. Now, I was looking for reason I was looking at this thing and interests me is because I was looking for a legal basis upon which, and the legal basis that they usually use is the Power of Attorney Act says that you have to file a report every year of the financial transactions you do under pursuant to the Power of Attorney Act. And if you're the wife of someone, an elder person or a son or a daughter or somebody else, you don't do it. And the transactions are minor, and those that you do usually, well, one of the cases we had, I think it was a Kaufman case, his father told him he wanted to do certain things. So he did it.
So?
And I'll bet you $1 to your penny that he never filed with his father a accounting. His father told him to do it, and he acted under the Power of Attorney Act. Now that could, if challenged, he violated the law, and they probably get rid of him. And that's the problem that does exist. And this bill also provides that the guardianship of a disabled adult may not be used as a retaliatory measure for the convenience of the healthcare provider. So in other words, they're attacking the established practice that exists in Illinois and elsewhere to get rid of these powers of attorneys, which interfere with the appointment of guardianship. Guardianship is worth money to somebody, and this bill goes exactly in the position of saying you can't do it. But the ironic thing is, you can say this till the cows come home, and nobody reads these things.
Well, who's going to be held accountable? You bring these bills to the House, they're voted on, they're voted in, and then so what does that do? Everybody says hooray, hurrah.
Well, yeah, they say
and
hurrah,
then they do,
we've won.
Yeah,
and they hold a
okay.
big celebration, and nothing happens because no one reads it.
And nobody takes it seriously then.
That's right.
So when somebody goes into court and they pull this garbage on them, on the family, and they pull out this paper that says, hey, this is the state representatives, Mr. Harris went to court and the House voted on it, and this is what my entitlements are and all that, you know, I don't understand. Why is that being taken care of?
No one cares about it, and that's the final victory is. I was looking for a list. I have here a list of the numbers for people to call. Here it is. Okay.
Yeah, dog ear did, for you.
Yeah, I see. To report suspected elder abuse, neglect, or exploitation in Illinois, they recommend the following numbers. Imagine just about everyone has called these numbers. 1-866-800-1409 for suspected elder mistreatment in the home. Call that number and see what you get out of it.
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay, here's another number. 1-888-206-1327 for suspected elder mistreatment in the home, TTY access.
Now that's for hearing impaired.
No one, you call, nothing happens. How about 217-524-6911 for suspected elder mistreatment in the home, out of state line?
Yeah, that's Springfield. You get nothing.
You're not going anywhere there either. 1-800-252-8966 to reach a senior helpline to report suspected elder mistreatment in long-term care facilities.
You get nothing out of that.
Nope. 1-888-206-1327 to reach senior helpline to report suspected elder mistreatment in long-term care facilities. I don't think we've called on that, but I'm sure. I did call on that, and I called on that on some case, and I'm still waiting for a reply back. I think it's about 2 years. 217-524-6911 to reach senior helpline to report suspected elder mistreatment in long-term facilities. That's an out-of-state line. It's a duplicate.
Yeah.
And the government agencies, and that's another trick we use. You know, when the legislature tells you how he went out and he got a bill passed, and that takes care of the whole problem.
Really?
It doesn't mean anything if law enforcement doesn't do anything. We have agencies that are involved here. We've got the Illinois Protective Services for Seniors, Illinois Department of Aging, Illinois Department of Public Health, Illinois Long-Term Care Ombudsman.
No, the Ombudsman, forget that.
Illinois Office of Attorney General.
Oh, yeah, right. That's Lisa Madigan. I called her. I got nowhere.
Nobody gets anywhere. You have all these agencies, and we'll set up a new agency that will take care of. I think we have one in the circuit court now. And people have gone there and gotten nothing. There is some progress. I understand that one of the guardians is no longer, one of the offensive guardians is no longer, has an office and doesn't accept faxes. And 2 judges have gone out of state. They're no longer on a bench. So there is a little bit of progress.
There is some momentum, but the 18th floor needs to be vacuumed. Up and out. In the bag and gone. Or sweep clean with a new broom.
It really does need it. Now,
Needs some
there's also
housekeeping.
something kind of interesting that again Tim brought
Tim
up.
Lehrman, all right.
And been looking into this, and it's making a lot of sense. Fee offices in Illinois.
What is that? Fee offices?
You remember we used to have justices of the peace?
Sure. Yeah.
In 1970, the biggest mover for a blue ballot initiative was the League of Voters. And they're pretty fed up with the corruption Illinois had. Illinois had a system involving masters in chancery. A master in chancery was a lawyer who had a certain amount of political pull, who was appointed to hear some of the complex cases in chancery.
Yeah.
And the usual procedure that was followed was he'd call the various attorneys, and there'd be a bid.
A bid?
A bid. You'd offer the master a certain amount of money, and the other side would get a chance
To bid for it.
to
match it.
match it.
Yeah. So,
And the master then wrote a report, and the chancellor then rubber stamped it. And that was pretty acceptable situations that existed. Well, the League of Voters was very unhappy with that and certain other practices that were going on, and pushed a new Illinois Constitution, which is the Constitution of 1970. And one of the things they did was abolish fee offices. And Tim asked me, is the Guardian a fee office?
interesting question.
It's a very good question.
It surely is.
And I think it is.
I think it is as well.
And
They
under
just changed the name. It does the same service.
it does the same type of thing. And under ADA, these costs that being charged these estates isn't appropriate.
Is it legal?
I don't think so.
Appropriate is one thing. Is it legal? That
No,
you can't
I don't think
do
so.
that.
I don't think it is. So I think that Tim has hit upon two Achilles' heels.
Wow.
And he and Gloria filed a suit in the relative to Mary Sykes
Yeah.
under ADA, and he's bringing all these organizations under wraps. And if he is successful, Illinois and the other states may very well have to follow the law. They might have to respect the civil rights of the elderly, and elder cleansing may be lost
Because of it.
because of it.
I want to ask a question. Now, because of this State Representative Harris, he brought this bill and it passed, or is it before the House, or where
I
is it?
don't know.
Well,
I
I want to
don't know.
know.
I've been trying to. I have a problem. I am a dinosaur.
Well,
and I changed my service. I went from Westlaw Next to LexisNexis Advanced, and I can't get the information on it, even though it's part of my service. So one of the things I'm going to be doing now that I'm retired, I'm going to.
Forced retirement.
Yeah, well, at my age, it's about time anyway.
No, you could, hey, this is America. You can go till you're 100.
Well, I thought it was America.
Well, we
but
did
I
too.
discovered that I'm not even a second-class citizen. The First Amendment doesn't apply to me. The Bill of Rights doesn't apply to me.
But you pay taxes?
I pay taxes.
Okay.
But apparently, Mr. Larkin can take and punish me for writing a letter to the Attorney General of the United States.
But you can write a letter to anybody
Well,
if you
apparently
want.
I can't because the Illinois Supreme Court refused to hear me, and the Supreme Court of the United States refused to hear me. So I'm in a position of being told that because I have a law license, I don't have the First Amendment rights.
Yeah.
They haven't shut me up yet.
No.
And it's very hard to
do
shut
that.
me up.
But I wanted to ask a question before we jump into what you were going to say is, Representative Harris, what if he mimeographs 100 million of these, what the bill is, what the law is going to stipulate, and if they have to go into court, gives that to the judge and says, now you have to do this. This is the law.
Well, it's got to pass. It's got to pass. But you see, everyone's ignoring the law.
But I'm saying, you bring it to the attention because you have...
Representative Harris's bill is unnecessary.
Because there's...
Because if the law as it sits today
is
were
adhered
enforced,
to, sure, adhered to, sure.
it's the end of the game for these people. There's no basis upon which the Mary Sykes case has two guardian ad litem,
Yep.
has a guardian, or that she has the problems that she has. Today, Mary Sykes, it's 4 years?
4 years.
4 years, and she still can't call her daughter on the phone and say whatever she wants to say. She can't call her two siblings on the phone. She's still under the control of these other people.
It's a house arrest.
It's a house arrest. And it's
Provided by the court system on the 18th...
by a corrupt judge
courts, yeah.
who appointed
Yeah.
all kinds of people to profiteer on her hide.
Yeah.
Just like they did with your mother.
Yes.
That's what they
Yes.
did to Barbara Stone,
Yeah.
to Janet Phelan. Now, all these people across the country.
By the way, you should mention that Barbara Stone is an attorney in Florida.
That doesn't mean anything.
And they accosted one of their own because she said she wanted to stand up for her mother and remove her from there, and they assaulted her.
They took away my First Amendment right. They ignored it.
It's supposed to be the good old boys club, anybody who's in that club, but they don't care. They just they divide and conquer. That's what they do. Divide and conquer. If you have a group and the group holds together, then you have solidarity. You know, Lech Walesa brought that in, solidarity, you know. So where is it here? This is America. Where's our solidarity here?
We have a cadre of people who are American ISIS. Their God is the dollar. And they're going to get that dollar out of our hides regardless. It's a good thing we have the Second Amendment.
The right
I
to bear arms.
recommend anybody who goes into a guardianship proceeding takes full advantage of the Second American
right to bear arms,
Amendment
yeah.
and goes in fully armed. And
Well-
when they try and put you under heavy sedation, put them under total sedation.
That's right. And the fact is that, you know, these judges seemed to have been, at the time we were in court, fearless, absolutely fearless. If you remember the comic strip with
They are.
Dick
They
Tracy was Fearless Fosdick, fearless.
They
absolutely
have
fearless.
immunity. They have immunity.
To murder. They have immunity to murder.
Well, they misuse. They don't have that immunity.
Well-
but a judge has a right to be wrong.
All right, but there
Okay.
can't be wrong all the time.
Well, in this
I've not seen
particular
any time.
situation, these judges have a protected environment. You see the extent that Mr. Larkin went out
Yeah.
to protect Judge Connors and Judge Stewart and the judges who were involved in the Mary Sykes case.
Yeah.
It's pure, unadulterated intimidation. It's a clear violation of every core value of American citizenship, what he did and continues to do. It's criminal himself. It's aiding and abetting a felony. And 18 U.S.C. 371 covers this thing.
Criminal code.
And I had an obligation to report it to law enforcement
true.
under 18 U.S.C. 4.
It's true.
And the fact is, Illinois provided me with an immunity from disciplinary proceedings, which nobody recognized. It's another law that nobody was concerned about. See, we have laws that protect everybody who's doing the right thing, and nobody reads them.
What is
Law
this?
Enforcement could care less.
Pick and choose? Is this a pick and choose kind of a situation? One off.
Oh yeah, it's pick and choose, but pick to protect these people. Do you realize the amount of taxes that are lost here? In the Mary Sykes case, there's about $1.5 million that the IRS should be getting from these people. A breach of fiduciary relationship is a taxable event. There's the gold coins. There's almost $1 million in gold coins and other property that was taken. That's taxable. As I told you before,
Sure.
When they took her house and they sold it to a nominee, when they reap that profit, that's ordinary income. They'll claim a capital gain and they'll get away with it.
Well, so who can step in? Where is the knight in shining armor on his steed
Damned if
to
I
come
know.
in
Damned if I
and
know. And he's
protect
not
the
running. And he's
innocent?
not running for governor.
We don't have anyone. We don't have anyone here, Ken. I'm not pleased with any of the candidates
Nobody is.
because of what their backgrounds are. We've got how many of our governors are in prison? They're in
We
the
had two and a-
penitentiary.
Well, it's
not just jail; it's a penitentiary.
You know, you got to have some respect for tradition. Everybody has traditions. Well, Illinois has a tradition.
They put their
They go from the state house to the big house.
That's well,
And maybe this latest thing with Quinn will put him follow the tradition, and our next governor, I'm sure, it'll follow the tradition.
well.
But there's not going to be.
Someone's got to follow up his background and see what's going
There's
on.
not a knight in shining armor around here. The idea here has to be
Follow the law. Follow the law.
is to create enough hue and cry that these people are afraid not to follow the law.
You have to make it a public
John
awareness.
Cass in the Tribune pointed out how, I think it was John Cass, somebody
John
pointed
Cass,
out
yeah.
how a judge is appointed.
It's how much you pay. That's how you get appointed.
You know, I like the part with the gym bag with the cash with $50,000 in cash.
Yeah.
As long as you have that type of a situation existing, where you have one party system in Illinois or any state, you got this problem. We have some very, very fine people who've been appointed judges.
How do we know? We've only got stuck with the lemons.
Well, I've practiced before some of them.
Okay.
Okay, and they know the law, they read the law. And we have the other extreme that are put in there, and we have to get rid of the other extreme. We want to keep the good judges, the ones who follow the law, that do a decent job, that try and be fair.
You know, reasonable, fairness, reasonable, and justice. The 18th floor, and we've had all those judges, we have not come across one. The judge that we were before, he was the one who allowed that ex-police officer who beat up that little girl in the bar room. He let him go, and he flew up from criminal court, he flew up to probate court. So he's in probate court now. The one that we had, Kawamoto, she was in juvenile court, destroying families and for life destroying families, and she flew up to probate court, never elected in office, vote for this. She was always appointed, and I think
you get
they're all
not all the
appointed.
appointed judges are a problem. There's some that are There's some that aren't.
You have to tell
And
me
the elected,
who.
the elected
you have
ones.
we have to just put the gold star on the right one, because I can tell you the X marks off the list are the ones that took off and left the state of Illinois, hoping that we would forget about them, but we'll never forget about you. Believe me.
No, you know, it's a little like the Asian carp. If the Asian carp get into Lake Michigan, it's going to do havoc to the ecosystem. Well, in terms of our legal system, the Asian carp have gotten in, and they're doing havoc to our legal system because there's no respect for the law. When you have a guy like Larkin, who has the temerity to assault the First Amendment and gets paid for it, and is running an agency that's doing this, how can you expect respect for law? How can you expect even the judges to respect what they're doing?
I told you have to hold their feet to the fire. You come into court, you hold up the paper, and you say, this is the Constitution, this is the Bill of Rights, I am entitled by law, and you are to protect me. This is the law that you have to
Barbara
do.
Stone did something like that.
And they put her in jail.
And she went to jail.
Yeah,
I think there's Candace, I can't think of her last name, she's in Texas. And there are contempt proceedings for her doing something similar for a client. And Grant Goodman in Arizona
Grant Goodman, yeah.
has had similar problems. He looked at this and said it's a RICO case.
RICO, absolutely.
The court itself is a criminal enterprise.
It is.
This is the same tack that the government took in the Greylord case.
Well, you know, we've contacted the FBI and all the other agencies. What do we need? The CIA? I don't understand. I know that they've got banking, out of state, out of country, either in the Cayman Islands or
no, it's not. They're buying casinos, and that's the way they're laundering
well,
money.
where they were sending my mother's money was the First Nations. First Nations FNB, First Nations Bank. The First Nations Bank of Canada. And that sounded like the First National Bank of Chicago, but it was the First Nation.
You mean they actually had an account in Canada
yes,
that laundered the money?
Yes, I've got the transcript. The First Nation, Indian Nations Bank of Canada. It's in Canada.
You know,
anyhow,
all of this is felonies.
Wait, we're going off the air. We got to thank you all for watching. Watch us next week. Pick this up on YouTube. We're going to continue this with more parts. Thank you for watching. Have a pleasant evening, a safe week, and see you next week on North Shore Live, Cooper's Corner. We want to thank Ken Ditkowsky for coming. He's going to come back and take care of the other section of his court cases. Thank you.